So, welcome back to Future You. And an article, Michael, that I know caught both of our eyes appeared in the Harvard Magazine, of all places, a few weeks back. It was titled Where the Grass is Greener, Leaving Academia to Advance Biomedical Research. And it basically interviewed three Harvard professors, or in this case, former faculty members now, who had jumped to different jobs outside of the academy at a company called MedX, at Vertex Pharmaceuticals, at Arena BioWorks, a new nonprofit biomedical research and development institute. And there's a lot of reasons that they cited, the bureaucracy, by the way, not just at Harvard, but also from the NIH. I also think that what's happening here is that it's unclear where federal research is going, right? It's clear that Congress and the White House wants to cut spending. I know cutting spending is a lot easier said than done. You go all the way back to the Reagan administration, where they had these special commissions to try to look into federal spending, much like Elon Musk is doing now. But we still have more federal spending than ever before. I think it's very hard, especially around things like healthcare with the NIH, with science and the NSF. These are big dollars that flow to colleges and universities. I think it's really going to be hard to cut back on those, but still, we may not see the growth that we have seen over the last 10 or 20 years. And so if you're in academia and you're getting a lot of money from the NIH or the NSF, you might start to say, hey, maybe the grass is greener on the other side. And I don't want to deal with working at a university. I could maybe make some more money at these places, or there's a potential more upside at these places. And I don't have to deal with the bureaucracy, not only of the university, but also of these federal funding agencies. What are some of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, look, I like that we're talking about this, because research is one of the major functions of, top universities, certainly in this country, knowledge creation, right, if you will. And although we tend in our dialogues around higher ed to focus disproportionately on teaching, research, right, for a certain set of institutions is ideally a big part of what they do. And if the business model, to your point, or the funding around higher ed research crumbles in any way, or it shifts in terms of priorities or how it's doled out, I do think it's a big question of what does this mean for universities, and can they innovate to create new ways of doing research and perhaps new business models around research. And I think it's important for our society, right? Like when I continue to give to my alma maters, a big reason I do is because of the knowledge creation and research that they do. And so I think it raises a big question of like, where will basic research occur and how will it be done? Three thoughts. I will say one, three is a trend, as you know, in journalism. So they have found three faculty members. They wrote, a story around it. Is it really a trend? I don't know. There wasn't data in that article, and I haven't seen anything, so I'm not sure. I will say, I guess, second is that there are some real problems with research in higher ed, and the article did a pretty decent job of nailing a few of them, but there's others. Like most academic papers get read by fewer than like three people or something like that, right? Ever.
And I think we're two of them, by the way. So.
Yeah, we're two. So there you go. And they tend to be incredibly narrow, little relevance. We know all the claims, right? And then, as Ira Stoll at the editors on Substack has noted, there's something interesting going on when both the winners of the Nobel Prizes in 2024 for physics and chemistry both had been employed by Alphabet, or what people still call Google in many cases. So two people from Google DeepMind were the two winners of the 2024 Nobel Prize in chemistry, and then Geoffrey Hinton had worked at Google for more than a decade and until 2023, and he won the 2024 Nobel Prize in physics. So that feels different. And I guess it ties into the third thing, which a point you made earlier. Research wasn't always the exclusive domain of universities. And I say it's a point you made earlier in the first half of the show around the evolution of higher ed. This is something really that U.S. universities copied from the German model and grew into over time. It's right. It's one of these evolutions. But prior to Sputnik, there were places like Bell Labs, IBM, that made big research contributions to humanity. And so this notion that universities, I think, are the only places for for basic research that might not have immediate commercial application, I don't know if that's true. I will say I think it's valuable to have non-commercial sources of basic research just to blunt ourselves against the narrow interests of companies that maybe just want to keep minting money the way that they always have. But according to Nature, many companies do important basic research today, whether it's La Roche, Novartis, Pfizer, Merck, AstraZeneca, IBM still, Alphabet. I mean, that's a lot. And given that we've established on past episodes of Future You that there is a limited market for PhDs at universities, there's a limited number of jobs for them. Maybe industry with its resources and perhaps less bureaucracy and less ideological priors as well, that maybe they're a part of the answer, although we'll have to think about how that balances against their desire for profit as well, Jeff.
Yeah, and I think part of the answer is key there, Michael. It may be that we're returning to this hybrid research model, right, where it is companies plus higher ed, where it had been kind of mostly outsourced to higher ed over the last 30 or 40 years. And the thing that I worry about is that that puts a lot of pressure on higher ed in certain disciplines to produce research. It also changes the incentives for faculty members and for institutions as a whole. So maybe bringing some balance back to kind of this research enterprise between private corporations and higher education is a good thing.